Hello, this is Snaggleferry, and today I'm doing another tutorial for the Mi-24 Hinds. In this episode, I'll be covering the defensive modules in the Mi-24, in particular the flare and chaff dispensers. If you haven't watched my previous videos, in one of them I go into detail on how to operate Petrovich overlay menu, so if you haven't seen it, I highly suggest you check it out. So in your ground crew rearm and refuel panel, you have this flare and chaff section right here. Top one is the flare, bottom one is chaff. You can have 192 total. You can either have 192 flares or 192 chaff, or you can mix. So what are those flare and chaff for? One of the threats you'll face on the battlefield will be surface-to-air missiles, and different surface-to-air missile sites have different guidance for their missiles. Some of them have infrared guidance. They'll lock onto your heat signature, like for example your hot engine exhaust, and they will follow that. And some surface-to-air missile sites have a Doppler radar that guide their missiles by locking onto your radar signature. And flare is used against infrared missiles, and chaff is used against radar-guided missiles. A flare is like a cartridge that gets ejected, that's burning in a very hot flame. And from a missile perspective, for an infrared guided missile, it looks like your heat signature kind of splits in two parts or in three parts, and the missile has to choose which signature to go for, and usually it goes for the hottest one. So if the flare burns hotter than your engine, then there is a chance it will go for the flare rather than your aircraft. And chaff basically looks like glitter that gets dropped behind you, and it reflects radar waves, making the surface-to-air radar think that you're actually a few meters back from your actual position. Chaff on its own will not do anything. You have to also do defensive maneuvers, like notching. Because of how the Doppler radar functions, you have to fly towards it or away from it in order for it to see you. And if you're flying sideways to it, if you have it at your 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock, it's gonna have a lot of troubles detecting you. So the notching that I mentioned is basically making a turn and putting the radar to your 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and then dropping chaff behind you. So in that configuration, the radar has more difficulty seeing you, and it's a lot easier for it to see the chaff. So sometimes the missile will go for the chaff rather than your aircraft. It's kind of hard to determine which missile type is getting launched at you. In other aircraft, you will look at your RWR. If the RWR is silent when you see a missile launch, that means it's an infrared missile. And if the RWR is beeping at you, that means it's a radar guided. But this aircraft, RWR is a little hard to use. It's old and not very informative. So you basically gotta make a judgment call on what missile is flying at you. I'll touch on the RWR a little later. So first thing I'm gonna cover will be the flares. The flare panel control is located in the front seat, but you can manipulate it using Petrovich UI. So if you bring up the Petrovich UI and press short left, you'll get the flare and the chaff panel. Short right switches the series between 4 flares and 16 flares. Short up switches the interval between 2 seconds and 4 seconds. Short down switches the side, the right hand side, left hand side of both. Long down switches between flare and chaff. So I have a flare set up, 4 flares from each side, and 2 seconds between each volley. And I'm gonna go engage Strela. By the way, in order for other Petrovich commands to work, you need to hide this flare and chaff overlay by pressing short left. And then the other Petrovich commands will work. So this is your button right here to start dispensing flares. By default, the button is not bound. It is in your controls, and it's in this ASO-2V tab in this drop-down menu. And by default, it doesn't have a key command. I have it bound to insert. This is how it is in other aircraft. Ahead of me, there's a Strela, just a small one. It's an IR guided surface-to-air missile on a mobile platform. It has a fairly short range. It has about 3 km range. So I'm gonna fly into its envelope and let it fire on me, and I'm gonna try to spoof the missile with flares. So it's just that vehicle right there. Missile launch. I press the flare dispense, and I'm making a maneuver. And the missile went wide. That's why I'm not dead yet. I keep dispensing and keep maneuvering away. Looks like it launched 2 missiles at me. There's a third one coming. You can see how the missile went for one of my flares. It just made a right and went under my airframe. I think it has one more. Unless I missed one launch. Flares won't give you 100% effectiveness, but they are fairly effective against these smaller Strelas and manpads. If you're ever in a situation, you know there's a SAM site and I can't see it, might as well just press the flare button and just start dispensing just in case. That saved me more times than I can count. I would go back to the attack view and I would look at it, and there are so many missile launches I haven't seen and I survived only because I was dispensing flares. You got lots of them. If you fully load flares, it's 192 flares, so you can dispense flares for quite a while. But this is how you fight against infrared seeking surface-to-air missiles. So the next thing I want to go over is your radar warning receiver. You got this SPO-10 radar warning receiver, same one as in the MiG-21. It's a little confusing to use, and it's not very useful in the busy environments if there's a lot of radars in the area. It gets confusing with all the lights and flashes. It becomes hard to understand what exactly the picture is. In this mission I just have one radar guided surface-to-air missile site, and it's going to be pretty clear where it is. So these are the 2 switches right here on the left side that you need for that system to function. This is the power switch, and this is the sound switch for the radar warning. The radar warning sounds are pretty loud and pretty obnoxious. I did not find the volume knob for it, so you can't really turn it down. And yeah, the sound it can be quite annoying, so a lot of people leave this switch off. It will still show you the direction. The lights will still flash, but you will not hear any sound, so it will not annoy you in your mission. So basically you got 4 lights. And a flashing light means that there is a radar illuminating you, and the lights correspond to a direction where it's coming from. Right now I have a SAM somewhere to the right and behind me. I'm gonna turn the right, and when both right lights illuminate, that means the SAM is somewhere at my 3 o'clock. So right now, both lights are flashing. That means the SAM is somewhere at my 3 o'clock. Gonna keep turning. Now the SAM's somewhere ahead of me and to the right. Only one light is flashing. Now the front lights are flashing. So the SAM side is somewhere ahead of me. Directly at my 12 o'clock. So I'm just gonna fly this direction and see if I can spot it. I just have the SA-8 OSA there. Has about 10-kilometer range. And also I'm gonna switch my countermeasures panel to Chaff. I'm gonna change the series to 16. This is how Chaff looks like on the outside. This is what you use against radar-guided surface-to-air missiles. So when a radar locks you, your RWR sounds and flashes become more rapid, and there's no difference between something locking you and something firing on you. So if you see those beeps and flashes go more rapid, start evasive maneuvers. Treat it as something is firing on you. Yeah, I think I see the SAM side. It's just over there. So I'm gonna again fly it to its envelope and let it fire on me and try to spoof the missile with Chaff. So pay attention right now to the RWR sounds and lights. SA-8 side is about to lock me up, and when it does, the sound and flashes will speed up. Okay, this radar warning receiver sped up, so the SAM is locking me, and it's gonna fire any minute. Any second. And I'm gonna try to notch it, and I'm gonna start deploying Chaff. Missile launch. I'm gonna put it at my 9 o'clock, and I'm gonna start dispensing Chaff now. Yeah, I successfully notched it. The missile exploded. So he lost me on his radar. I'm gonna keep approaching him. Closer I am to him, less time I have to notch him. Another missile launch. Dispense Chaff. Yeah, and the missile just made a hard right. It went for one of my Chaff. This missile is going to be hard to defeat. So I'm going to drop to 10-meter altitude. Oof, that was close. Staying below 10 meters is the only reliable way I know of defeating these missiles. At this point, you become a ground vehicle, basically. Yeah, and you get filtered off its radar. As long as you're below 10 meters, you can approach right on top of it. I'm not below 10 meters, that's why it keeps shooting at me, but the missile doesn't track very well when you're that low to the ground. Yeah, and this missile goes who knows where. Yeah, the RWR slowed down, that means he's not locking me anymore because I'm too low. And at this point I'm probably too close. All surface-to-air missiles have a minimum launch range. So once you're within its minimum engagement distance, you're free to do whatever you want. You can be at whatever altitude you want, you can circle it around, it will not fire at you. So this is how you can defeat the surface-to-air missile sites, radar guided, by using Chaff or by dropping below 10 meter altitude. And dropping below 10 meter altitude works for any surface-to-air missile, including the IR, including the manpads and whatnot, and any other guidance that we have in DCS. We have some SAM sites with optical guidance as well, and they do as well get filtered out by staying below 10 meters. So the issue with the Mi-24 RWR is when you join a busy mission with lots of radars, this is what you get. Now basically there is radars everywhere. We don't know if they're friendly, we don't know if they're hostile, how far they are, what type of radar it is, if it's an aircraft, if it's an early warning radar, or if it's surface-to-air missile. And it's pretty hard to understand what's going on based on this. It worked well in my previous example with just one SAM site, but when there's lots, it's really hard to use. I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment and I'll respond the best I can. So have a wonderful day. Snaggle Fairy checking out.